Hello, my name is Sarah Rothenfletch. I'm here today with Galit Riley and Corey Jacobs. Our pronouns are all she, her, and we are your hosts for this year's Build Pacific Northwest.
Hello, welcome.
Hi, everybody.
So over the next 2 days, the three of us are going to lead you through a journey exploring B Corps and the place they have in the world today.
We planned this conference with the knowledge that community and connection are key for an event like this. As a result, all of our breakout sessions include an opportunity to connect and have conversations.
We also wanted to have a couple of opportunities to meet in person. Hopefully some of you were able to join one of the coffee meetups this morning. In addition, we have an in-person happy hour tonight from 5:30 to 7 p.m. on the rooftop of the Ego Trust building. Tickets are still available. The link will be in Eventbrite. Hope you can join us.
So this is how it will work today. The conference runs until about 4 o'clock before that happy hour. And then again, tomorrow from 9 a.m. to about 1. The Zoom room that you are in right now will always be live. You can click over here and always find something happening, even if it's just us chatting and directing you to the breakout sessions that are happening.
Follow along with all the sessions on Sched. That's likely how you got here. The main sessions, as Sarah said, are in this room. There are different unique links to each breakout, so just go back to the Sched and follow the link to the place you want to go. And if you're ever lost, just pop back here and we'll help you out.
Before we go any further, we would like to thank Kel Moody and Karen Lichtig. If you're already part of the B Corp community, I'm sure you know them well. They've both been guides and supports through this planning process, and we really appreciate everything.
We would like to recognize the Indigenous communities that have stewarded the land that we now know as the Portland metro area. We recognize this as the territory of the Multnomah, Cathlamet, Chinook, Clackamas, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Malala, Wasco, Cowlitz, and the many other Indigenous peoples. These tribes are now represented by the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. You can learn more at grandronde.org. And if you're joining us from beyond the Portland area, like I know some of you are, we encourage you to use existing resources such as nativeland.ca to find out which Indigenous communities are native to your personal region. Despite this being a virtual event, we must acknowledge that we are experiencing this gathering on physical land that was stolen from Indigenous people. And during this conference, you'll have a really unique opportunity to develop a deeper understanding of the role of conscientious businesses, like B Corps, for example, in engaging Indigenous communities. There are 2 breakout sessions tomorrow that you won't want to miss. They're exploring the relationships between Indigenous communities and local businesses. Sign up for them on Sched.
Thanks, Sarah. Black Lives Matter, and we believe the only way forward is to dismantle the systemic racism that exists in our economic and societal systems. Last year's racial reckoning and amid the global pandemic was a call to action. As Amanda Gorman said earlier this year, we've learned that quiet isn't always peace. With unprecedented attacks on voting rights, reproductive health, and transgender youth, and 1 in 3 Americans affected by a climate disaster, this space is crucial to bring the B Corp, B Local PDX community together again to build a movement for change. Throughout the planning process, we intentionally worked and are continuously learning to create a gathering that is actively anti-racist, and we invite you to experience this event with deep intention around justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility.
We want to thank Alexis Braley James from Construct the Present, as well as the staff at B Lab for helping us in this journey. We will not tolerate any forms of harassment, discrimination, intimidation, oppression, or exploitation. We also acknowledge that these current times and circumstances are unique and difficult, and people have been impacted in a myriad ways by recent events. We invite you to practice self-care and show up to this virtual space in the way that feels right for you. As an event and organization, we uphold B Lab's anti-racism commitment. You can find that in Sched and in the Scout Book.
Now, please take a moment today to read our impact, intention, and inclusion statement on page 8 of that Scout book, and it's listed on the logistics page of Sched. We are open to your feedback on how we can do better. We always can. Feel free to email us with any concerns during the time of our gathering. We're going to put that email address up in the chat.
Thank you all for being here today. We want to learn a little more about who we have in our audience, so we've created a poll so folks could let us know where they're joining from.
And it looks like we have over 100 people attending so far today.
One of the cool things about this year's build is that we're able to have people join us from near and far. Geography and accessibility challenges that go along with the physical space are no longer barriers to attending the event, which is awesome.
And looks like we're still having people participate, but it looks like we have some people from all over, from Midwest, from the Southeast, and also from here in the Pacific Northwest. Welcome.
Man, no people from Canada yet. I'm one, so I'll represent there. Our conference theme this year is Build Transformation. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused enormous uncertainty and lost revenue for businesses. It's caused job loss and instability for individuals and families, and just kind of an overall disconnect and loneliness as people try to balance the necessities of community health with the hunger for interpersonal connection.
In this year's conference, we'll explore the role B Corps have in leading community out of this crisis. We'll talk about how we can set new standards for racial equity, climate justice, and economic inclusivity, and what we can do to be a brave leader, willing to take our own risks in order to build a stronger future.
There is a need to transform the way we do business, the way we step up and lead. The goal for these 2 days is to motivate you, even more than you already are, to do your part to transform towards change.
And I think it's really important that as we go into today and tomorrow, we think about these community guidelines. They're up here on the screen, but let's talk about them a tiny bit more. Lead with empathy and curiosity. That means appreciate others as fellow human beings with abundant knowledge and experiences. Ask questions, avoid judgment or assumptions, receive feedback with curiosity. Speak from experience. Don't speak on behalf of anyone else or feign alignment with another's experience. Just trust people and what they've gone through. And that personal wellness thing, that's a first priority. Take the time and space you need in order to be able to participate.
One person, one mic. Let others be heard and practice active listening. Fully concentrate, understand, respond, and then remember what's being said. Move up, move up. Know yourself. If you tend to speak a lot, move up into a role of listening. If you tend to hang back and listen, move up and share your experience. We don't have to be articulate all of the time. Insights come in many forms, and all feedback is valuable regardless of its polish.
Acknowledge the difference between intent and impact. If you say or do something that creates harm, apologize. No need to rationalize. Practice radical inclusion. Do your part to be sure that everyone, especially those historically at the margins, feels truly included. Maintain confidentiality. What is said here stays here, unless you have explicit permission to share. Get comfortable with discomfort. Understand that issues are not black and white, questions may not fully be answered, and difficult subjects may feel unresolved.
I'm sure everyone is pretty familiar with Zoom by now, but let's go over the following Zoom guidelines which can also be found on the logistics page in SCED, which is being shared in the chat. Make sure your name is accurately listed and add your pronouns. In breakout sessions, join us on video if you're able to, but we understand if that doesn't work for you. Speak slowly and clearly so that others can hear and understand you. Here in the main webinar room, your camera and mic will be off, but you can use chat and Q&A as needed. Mute yourself when you're not speaking and turn off video if there's movement or distractions while you're in the breakout rooms.
We want to say a very special thank you to our many friends and supporters. Our presenting sponsors, Tillamook and Beneficial State Bank. Our gift bag sponsors, Relay Resources, Permanente Dentistry, Metro Group, and Killing Pacific. Our engagement sponsors, Avenue, Foley. Our community sponsors, Crosby Hops, Living Room Realty, 100 Seconds, and Mirror. The green sponsors, which was a new category added this year, through partnerships with Northwest Permanente, Progressive Investment Management, Bonneville Environmental Foundation, and 3 Degrees, we'll be balancing our carbon, energy, and water footprints. Our engagement sponsors, New Seasons Market and the Green Cities Company. Community sponsors, the Blackbird Benefits Collective, Cushman & Wakefield, M. Mercer Consulting, Scout Books, and Wanderwell. And over the next 2 pages, we have in-kind sponsors, which have helped us, and we'll mention several times with our gift boxes. Thank you all very much.
And thank you to this year's fabulous planning committee. A very, very special thank you to Sarah Medley and Martine Freeberger, our fabulous graphic design team. Thank you all so much.
And then, of course, a thank you to the Be Local PDX board. You're going to see lots of them over the next 2 days as they pop in and out of sessions. Thank you all very much.
And as I mentioned, you'll be hearing a lot about gift boxes as we go through the next couple days. Thank you to all of our sponsors. For those of you who haven't heard, we have some amazing gift boxes filled with donated items from the B Corps we just listed. The Be Local PDX will be sharing profits from these gift boxes with the Equitable Giving Circle and Verde. We are pleased to be working with these nonprofits as they align with our themes, build transformation, as well as B Lab's theory of change. Please see Eventbrite details to purchase one of these amazing boxes.
We have 2 elements that we'll be adding consistently over the next 2 days as well. The first is the one and only DJ C Money, who started us off today. C Money will be popping in and out, keeping us entertained and having fun throughout the day. We also have some live art happening. I'm going to turn it over to Karen to tell you more about it. Hi, Karen. How's it going over there?
Hey everyone, so great to see you and be here today for the 5th annual Build Pacific Northwest. I'm here on location today at the Nova building in the Central East Side area of Portland. And I'm here with Kyra Watkins. She's an artist and she's going to be producing a live mural here over the next couple of days. So we're gonna say hi to Kyra and let her introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Kyra. I am a muralist based here in Portland, and I'm very excited to just be bringing you this piece of artwork live. So I'm excited for you guys to check in and see our progress. And thank you guys for having me.
All right. Thanks, Kyra. And we want to say a big thanks as well to Killian Pacific, one of the sponsors that made this possible, as well as the Portland Street Art Alliance and their partnership. So we'll be checking in on this over the next few hours and days to see the progress.
Karen, that is just looking so fun over there already. Really awesome. I can't wait to see this develop with Kyra over the next 2 days. We'll be checking in on the progress, as we mentioned to you before, so you can see it happening here. But if you feel like getting out on one of these nice days, you can also go in person to 1615 Southeast 3rd Street. That's in the parking garage of the Nova building on the west side of the building.
Thanks, Sarah. Now let's get right into it. I'd like to introduce a video from Matt Milet, the VP of Commercial Team Lending at Beneficial State Bank, one of our presenting sponsors. Matt is here to introduce today's first keynote speaker.
Hi, and welcome to Build Pacific Northwest 2021. My name is Matt Milet, and I'm team lead for Portland Commercial Lending at Beneficial State Bank. My pronouns are he, him. Beneficial State Bank is proud to be a presenting sponsor of today's conference. The past 2 years have been a departure from our known reality. We've changed the way we interact with our family, friends, and social network. It has forced us to take a closer look at our world and the way our actions impact those around us. Beyond the pandemic, our planet is shifting. I thought I might share a personal story as an illustration of the very real climate impact we are all experiencing. In late June of this year, I took my teenage daughters on a backpacking trip into the Hoh River Valley of Olympic National Park. As we hiked into the rainforest, the temperature began to rise. By the time we reached camp the first day, it was uncomfortably hot. On the 3rd day of the trip, we woke up at 6 a.m. and climbed 3,500 feet to the Blue Glacier on Mount Olympus. We expected cool breezes as we gained elevation, but there was no breeze. On the glacier, the sun was hot and blinding. It rapidly melted the snow to overflowing creeks and waterfalls. It was clear to everyone that something was off. Day 4, we woke up even earlier in order to hike out. We wanted to beat the heat, and for 3 hours, we were fine. By late morning, everything changed. The heat became unbearable, even in the shade of the forest canopy. Our pace slowed and water stops increased. The Hoh River became cloudy with silt from the glacier runoff and clogged our water pumps. I became very concerned for the safety of my daughters as their faces turned red and water dwindled. When we finally reached the trailhead, a park ranger let us know it was 108 degrees in the forest. For reference, the average June high in the Hoh is 64 degrees. The Hoh is one of the healthiest temperate rainforests in the United States, and it was baking before our eyes. You may not think how you spend money or how you invest your money or how you save money has a substantial impact on the world. I assure you that it does. I'm not specifically asking that you do business with our bank, but I do ask that you pay attention to your bank. What kind of loans do they make? Who do they support? In the past 5 years, the world's 60 largest banks have financed $3.8 trillion in fossil fuels. Where you keep your money matters. If you are ever interested in a conversation, Beneficial State Bank is always excited to discuss how we are different. It is my privilege now to introduce today's keynote speakers for BLD Pacific Northwest. A global pandemic, systemic racism, human inequality, and climate change are among the challenging realities we face today. But committed B Corps have taken on the responsibility to build a much better future. Jorge Fontenez, the new CEO of BLab US and Canada, and B Local PDX Chair David Kale look to the future and discuss how the pillars of racial equity, climate justice, and stakeholder-driven economy set the stage for this conference and the future of the movement. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, B Nation.
Hi, David.
Hi, Jorge. I'm David Kale. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the CEO at Fully and the board chair of B Local PDX. And this is probably a good time to talk about what B Local PDX is and our relationship to BLab, because technically we're two distinct and unaffiliated entities. As many of you know, B Local PDX is a group of certified B Corps here in Oregon and Southwest Washington, working to foster and deepen connections among organizations in our region who share our purpose and passion for using business as a force for good. We work to provide certification support for aspiring and existing B Corps, connections for growth opportunities, and collaboration around social and environmental impact. And just to make sure we're all clear, certified B Corps or B corporations are for-profit companies that use the power of business to build a more inclusive and sustainable economy. They meet the highest verified standards of social and environmental performance, transparency, and accountability, and are certified by the nonprofit BLab. Of course, BLab does a lot more than certifying B Corps. They're at the forefront of the discussion around transforming the global economy to benefit all people, communities, and the planet. Imagine a regenerative and inclusive economy that works for all. And so today I'm excited to introduce the new CEO of BLab for the US and Canada, Jorge Fontenez. Jorge has dedicated his career to the pursuit of achieving racial equity through economic equity. He has worked in the corporate world on the marketing and brand strategy for brands across a variety of sectors like Colgate-Palmolive, Alcoa, JP Morgan Chase. He designed a course on stakeholders and marketing and lectures at the Bard MBA in Sustainability program. Jorge also serves as advisor to the NYU Center for Sustainable Business and has been a first mover fellow at the Aspen Institute for Business for the past 7 years. Two-time Webby Award winner in the category of corporate social responsibility. He's also been involved with a number of nonprofit organizations committed to a range of issues related to youth, education, and social justice. Jorge identifies as Afro-Latinx queer of the Puerto Rican diaspora, who was born and raised in Philadelphia and currently lives in New York City with his partner of 18 years. And in August, he was named BLab CEO for US and Canada. We are so fortunate as a movement to have Jorge at the helm, and I'm excited to introduce you to Jorge Fontenez today. Take it away, Jorge.
Thank you, David. It's so great to be here. I have to say I'm slightly overwhelmed by your introduction, which I appreciate so much, and really appreciate all of the production, the level of production that you all have put into this conference. You are the first event within the Be Locals community that I'm attending, and it feels really good to be here. So thanks for that kind introduction. Also, congratulations on your 5th anniversary. I think that milestone should also be celebrated, and it is so wonderful to see you all continuing this tradition in a virtual way. And I would be very excited to be invited back to be with you all in person when that time comes. As David said, while I am new to this role as CEO for BLab US and Canada, I have deep experience as well in businesses working for multinational companies. And for the last decade, in particular, I've been spending a lot of time and energy advising small and medium-sized businesses, especially founders of color, to connect them to both capital and knowledge networks. I want to start my talk here with a quote from Audre Lorde that I think helps frame not only my keynote here, but also the intention that I hear so well articulated in the opening so far. Audre Lorde was noted to say that there's no such thing as a single issue struggle because we do not live single issue lives. This idea and understanding that racial inequity is inextricably linked to all forms of oppression, both through systems and structures that systematically disadvantage marginalized populations, are important for us to gain an understanding about. And it is why BLab's anti-racism statement recognizes and stands against all forms of oppression. So while we together focus on climate justice and racial equity, we also look at these issues through an intersectional lens, centering in particular the experience of some of the more historically marginalized groups, in particular Black and Indigenous women. What I'd like to do next is share a little bit from my perch, what I see in the BLab organization and throughout the community. Our theory of change, developed for US and Canada, focuses on cultural, behavioral, and system change. And that intention is defining our strategy through 2025. You all are hopefully becoming familiar with or are familiar with already the vision of creating an equitable, inclusive, and regenerative economic system. And I believe that in order to achieve that vision, it requires that we deeply understand how the issues of racial equity and climate justice are here with us today because of a history of unjust practices and policies. Recognizing again that these are interconnected issues that must be addressed together. And so this visual looks to share some of those principles of the work that is ahead of us. Rooted in our work is a stakeholder economy, believing that business creates value for all stakeholders, or that it should prioritize value for all stakeholders. That we are enabling climate justice to contribute to a regenerative, to regeneration, not degradation of natural ecosystems. And also that we're creating a racially equitable future to grow with, actively dismantling unjust systems along the way. And so let me lift up what I'm seeing in the community and how we are meeting the moment with our theory of change. This next slide speaks to the journey that we're on together. In just this past year, we have seen incredible growth and demand for our tools. A 60% growth, in fact, in new registrations on the B Impact Assessment. Today, we can say that nearly 150,000 businesses have registered on the B Impact Assessment since B Lab started 15 years ago. The global B Corp community grew also 25% last year. And while we see demand continuing to grow and knowing how our tools are supporting this journey, we also continue to emphasize what it means to continuously improve in this work, because we know that there are more opportunities for us to make progress on our commitments. We're also creating communities of practice along the way to learn from one another. And I see that embodied here today, in fact. And so it's great to get finally a window into all of what's happening through Build and in particular through BLocal PDX. And it is together that we will mobilize collectively to take positive, proactive policy action. In the next slide, there's more evidence of a resilient movement. During the last financial crisis, I've learned that B Corps were 63% more likely to survive than other businesses. And again, last year in 2020, the B Corp community once again demonstrated its resiliency in the face of challenge. As millions of businesses worldwide closed their doors permanently, more than half of B Corps grew in this time. More than half of B Corps hired more employees. About just the same, 47% of B Corps experienced employee growth of more than 15%. And 2/3 of you saw increased revenue in 2020. During the same period, we've also noted that 88% of B Corps hired a majority of their non-managerial workers from within their local communities, recommitting to the communities as a key stakeholder and a critical component to maintaining resilient businesses. The next slide also shows how we're building new practices and policies. From end to end, B Corps are somewhere between 34 to 94% more likely than traditional businesses who are not B Corp certified to have provided services, benefits, and enacted policies that protect all of their employees during the pandemic. These statistics energize me so much. And we can begin to look at the evidence of what we're seeing on the justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion front. This next slide shows that in 2020, the B Lab and B Global Network re-centered the importance of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion work, while also acknowledging that we can do better and that there are steps that we can take to improve. So just about 12% of B Corps are led or owned by racially or underrepresented individuals from Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities, especially. Yet, almost 70% of you, 65%, I should restate that, B Corps are 65% more likely than non-B Corps to have conducted pay equity analyses by gender, race, ethnicity, and other demographic factors. And where necessary, implementing equal compensation improvement plans and policies. This is where I am so enthusiastic to see how B Corps are already making a difference. Another program that I hope you'll hear more about is Level, where we are looking to level the playing field. The next slide features the family of Heifer farms. And just for some historical context, I'll share that Black farmers in the US have lost 80% of their farmland between 1910 and 2007, often because they lacked access to loans or insurance needed to sustain their businesses. Today, Black-owned farms make up less than 2% of all farms in the United States. This is one reason why our team within B Lab US and Canada and the community has been working to level the playing field. And the founder here, Clarenda Stanley, has noted to us that while the planting fields aren't level yet, through programs like Level, we can now celebrate that Clarinda is now the first Black woman-owned farm to achieve a designation as a B Corp certified business. We're also taking action, and you all are taking action already on climate. So I'm sharing more data that you've hopefully seen in our latest annual report. Next slide, please. At a high level, the Net Zero 2030 campaign already embodies what our theory of change is about, which is collective action and moving ahead of where policy is and where many business leaders are in terms of making commitments to counteract climate change. When compared to other businesses, from January 2020 through March of 2021, B Corps were 1.5 times more likely to be carbon neutral, 2.5 times more likely to have reduced their greenhouse gas emissions by 20% or more, and 68% more likely to use renewable energy. So when we think about the net zero by 2030 commitments, we should also know that we're bringing a lot of businesses along the way with us. In 2019, 500 B Corps initially pledged to that commitment, a full 20 years before the requirements of the Paris Agreement. And we are now at 1,400 companies making that commitment. And not all of them are B Corps, by the way. And this is the opportunity for us, is to not only lead through our actions, but also bring other businesses, B Corp and non-B Corp, along the way. I'll conclude by lifting up a tool that also embodies the work ahead. The Climate Justice Playbook shows how we're leading with urgency, and it centers the same voices that we believe from frontline communities can help us do this work better. The playbook itself calls on the global business community to make a fundamental shift in both mindset and behavior, to evolve from extractive and exploitative practices to regenerative and equity-driven. And we're putting those who are impacted by climate change at the forefront of driving these solutions. With your help, we'll continue to share real-world examples as we update this playbook moving forward. And through our communities of practice, look to give advice to each other and share the real human stories that are essential to understand how we move this work forward and how we make real progress on climate action. The next slide, again, is lifting up 2 other resources for us to deepen our understanding of the 3 pillars that you'll hear more about related to stakeholder governance, again, climate justice and racial equity. And I'm happy to share more about that either in Q&A or in conversation with David. But please look out for these tools, because these are how we are looking to share what we know so far on how B Corps can play a role. And we're looking forward to getting your feedback and engaging with us on which issues you'd like to take action on as well. And with that, I'll turn it back over to David. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jorge, for that overview. So appreciative of you being with us today. And I encourage the community that's with us here at the conference to, if they have any specific questions for Jorge, we're going to have a little bit of time to ask him directly. So you can use your Q&A box to pose those. And we already have one in there now. But one thing that I really would love to unpack a little bit with you, Jorge, because it can really be overwhelming when we look at all of the issues facing us as people in this world in capitalism. I know I can speak by saying it can be overwhelming. And a lot of the times I feel like the discussion is really centered around large corporations. What can the big companies do to solve this problem? And, you know, the B Corp community is really full of a lot of small businesses the majority of certified B Corps are classified as small businesses. So I'm wondering what you would say to what can we do as a small business, as a small B Corp, as part of the B local community? What role can we play in this cultural shift?
Yeah, David, first, let me acknowledge that these issues are overwhelming, and we're living through an unprecedented moment in our lives, I would say, where no generation living today has experienced perhaps the same level of intensity of issues coming together at once, particularly with the pandemic and having to adjust. And so I want to acknowledge that, in fact, when I think about small businesses, we know that small business is an economic engine, and it is a job creator for the US, and I think that may also be true for other parts of the world. And so I would say first that SMEs, if just, for short, that's what we talk about, small, medium-sized businesses, are already a driving force. That in fact, we know that a large part of our community represents or is made up of small businesses, that there are some well-known brands that are part of the B Corp community, and yet they are only about 20% of the number of B Corps actually certified in US and Canada. And it's not just the numbers that matter, but it's the action and energy behind it. And so, yes, we see that we may be in conversations with brands and companies like Patagonia, and there might be more attention being drawn to those B Corps that are more recently coming out to be public with their public offerings. But it's the small businesses in particular that created the B Corp Climate Collective, right? That pushed for B Lab to create space back in 2019 at the Champions Retreat to begin thinking about how we were going to create urgency behind climate, and out of that came the Net Zero by 2030 campaign. I'm interested in an equivalent. I think we have opportunities to create that same level of urgency behind racial equity issues as well. And we're listening. We're listening for how small business leaders in particular are finding agency in this moment, because it's important that we represent you well. And so maybe I'll just wrap up by saying the how small businesses can engage is as much defined by the community as defined by B Lab. What I presented today is really a strategy. It's a theory, and we're working to build all of the components that will help to realize that strategy. And we know we can't do it without the B Corp community behind us and leading.
Yeah, well said, Jorge. And I think that we'll see lots of opportunities over these next couple of days on all of those three legs of the table on how we can engage at the B local level. There was a question that came into the Q&A chat about, where can we learn more about supporting Black-owned farms and level? So Rose, thanks for putting that link directly from the B Corp site on what we can do to vote with our dollars to make sure we're supporting Black-owned farms and just raise awareness around Black-owned farms as well. I have another question as well that's come in regarding the B local communities, Jorge. Certainly, we talked a little bit about the role B Lab plays and the role of the B local communities, and certainly here at B Local PDX, we're focused on building community, supporting one another, experience sharing, creating best practices. As it relates to the local and regional networks of B Corps, like B Local PDX, in the theory of change, how do climate justice, racial equity, and stakeholder governance show up on a local level? And how can local communities like Be Local PDX play a part in mobilizing for collective? I know this is sort of similar to the first question, but a little bit different on manifesting these things at the local level.
Mm-hmm. It's a great question because when we think about mobilizing collectively, we can think at a local level. So I'm thinking about your theme, the theme for today's talk, and I know the conference theme is about transformation. And we're talking about what it means to transform through change, which I think has many meanings, actually, the more I reflect on the theme. For me personally, so let me just say a little bit about me. As you said in my introduction, I come from the Puerto Rican diaspora. I live in a neighborhood in the borough of Manhattan in New York City that is still largely has a large Puerto Rican community. And through the pandemic, there was great evidence of how the community came together and how we could support each other. And that support continues through, I'm trying to think of the word, but open fridges, open refrigerators with where basically food can be shared, stocked, and anyone who needs, can go and get the food there. Mutual aid, of course, throughout the country, but also in New York City became an important part of supporting elderly and those in need throughout the community, as well as helping to recover and rebuild throughout the pandemic in New York City. So I believe very much in the power of local connection to bring forward change. And so I think there are some recent examples, actually, that if you all haven't seen in our newsletters, are actually asking B Corps to call their congressperson, to call their senator. Our most recent initiative for the White House initiative on inclusive economic growth includes a policy docket that has most recently been signed by Senators Warner and Feinstein and Van Hollen. And there was a similar letter sent by representatives from the House in support a letter to the administration in support of our White House initiative. It's time and an opportunity, or I should say it's timely for B Corps to dig into some of the policy work and call your senator, call your congressperson, and open up a conversation about how, as a B Corp, you've been already living into these values and that you support the policies that are in those resources, in those tools. So I do believe that we have an opportunity to build pressure in DC, but also locally, at least from a policy standpoint.
Thanks, Jorge. We could talk all day about this. We've only got a minute or two left because we have so much more stuff to come. Certainly, there's a lot of folks who are looking to get recertified or getting certified for the first time. So we know that there's a lot of that B Lab is a little backlogged on processing those things. One question that came in is how's the standards team holding up? Given the massive influx of new submissions for certification, we can talk about that one, but I'm going to allow you to answer that question directly. Yes, there's a lot of demand to become a B Corp. There's no doubt about that, and I know that B Lab is doing a lot there. But finally, this last question is for someone who's just dipping their toes into the B Corp world, and to keep it from being overwhelming. What are the top 2 or 3 messages you'd want them to focus on during this conference and in the next few days, weeks, and months? So I'll leave it with that, and we can close it down with you answering that one, Jorge.
Particularly for people that are new to the movement?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing I would say is, as I hopefully shared in my keynote, I'm already learning a lot from all of you. And so I would invite you to learn from each other. Yes, we have developed some great tools that each of you can dig into, and the work is only as good as our ability to connect around the work and have good conversations about best practices and sharing those best practices. So I would definitely reinforce what you've already created here, which is peer-to-peer connection. I know that other members of my team are joining, and so you'll hear from Marielle Martin, who's created an amazing set of resources for the Black, Indigenous, and people of color network, but also for anyone who's interested to deepening their own personal journey around what it means to become anti-racist. Not only is that part of our site quite beautiful in representation with beautiful images from an artist who we commissioned to do that work. But there's some real valuable information for each of us to learn from, because this journey is both personal, interpersonal, and institutional. And so I invite you all to dig more into that work and to listen to what Marielle has to say. We call her Madi, about the work and the community that she's built for the Black, Indigenous, and People of Color Network.
Awesome. Jorge, thanks so much for being with us today. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
B-Lab, and best of success to you. I'm going to turn it back over to Sarah and the gang from here.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you both so much. It was really a lot of information to take in and really a great start for today. That was David Kale, the president and CEO of Fully and the chair of B-Local PDX, and Jorge Fontenez, the CEO of B-Lab US and Canada. Thanks again so much.
Now, this is when we send you over to our breakout sessions. You have likely seen the information about all of them over on Sched. We'll throw the link back into to Sched back here in the chat. The way to do it is to go back there, click on the session you're interested in, and you'll find a link to the Zoom room where it's happening. After the breakouts, you'll come back here to the main room for a mindfulness break, a word from Oregon's poet laureate, and then our next keynote conversation.
Thanks. The first set of breakouts are about to go on at 12:50, as Galit said. The first one is the economic opportunity from supplier to employee, led by Summer Hess of Measurement. And the second is how to create a transformative action plan with the executive director of EcoTrust, Jeremy Barnacle.
The third breakout option is led by Anna Medill, the CEO and founder of the digital marketing agency Avenue. She'll discuss how the future of business can actually be equitable and just, even if it's a bit of a journey to get there.
While we've got you here, just a heads up about two social things that are happening later today. At 4:15, we have the virtual wine tasting and networking hosted by Alex from Portland Internet Works. It'll be a great opportunity to connect with others in a virtual way, and we'll be joined by A to Z, Winderly, Brooks, and Sokol Blosser wineries. There's also an in-person opportunity if you're interested and available from 5:30 to 7 on the rooftop of the EcoTrust Pearl building. Tickets are $15. You can follow the link in Sched, and they're available until we reach our 50-person limit. The event will be hosted by EMA Architecture and Shine Distillery. We're going to be serving a special cocktail, snacks, and several B Corp wines that we just mentioned above, as well as Hopworks beer. We will be requiring proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test within the last 72 hours. And we'll also be following the Oregon COVID guidelines and mask mandates. Hope you guys can join us.
Thanks, Corey. While you're in your breakouts, this room will remain open. We'll show some of the art, the street art, as it's being created live by Kyra, and perhaps listen to some music from fabulous DJ C Money. Enjoy the breakouts. Welcome back, everybody. As you can see, Kyra's making some amazing progress on her art, and it's really exciting to be able to watch this progress throughout the day. Thank you, Kyra, for being here.
All right, those of you who are back, I hope you enjoyed the breakout sessions. Coming up in 20 minutes, we'll have our next keynote conversation. Andy Reed and Yvonne Smoker from Prosper Portland are going to share their best practices about how to enter and track social equity work, and that's happening right here. While we have the opportunity, I'd like to have a raffle. And I think Rose has got that ready. We're going to put this one into the chat. You can follow the link to a Google form for a chance to win a B Corp gift box. We'll keep that up there for a little bit and we will announce the winners at the end of today. Now we're going to have another chance for some calm movement with a mindfulness break from Rachel Bellinger, the founder of Mindful Good, and some wonderful poetry from Oregon's very own poet laureate. Now here's Rachel.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to your mindfulness break. My name is Rachel Bellinger, and I am the founder of Mindful Good, a mission-driven mindfulness consultancy and community founded in Denver, but now based in the Pacific Northwest. So I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to share mindfulness with you all today. I am a longtime supporter of the B Corp community and movement. This meditation is designed to mix and cultivate the harmony of relaxation and alertness so that you can really get the full benefits of this conference. So let us begin with our posture. Find a comfortable seat and let the spine be long and stacked and relaxed. So we don't want to be too tense or rigid in any way, just gentle, focused awareness. And then close your eyes. Take a moment of stillness and sense the pause. This might be the first still moment you have got today, so really drink it in. The simple act of closing your eyes and connecting inward already begins the process of slowing the brain down from high beta states to low beta and into alpha, which are really states of the brain that are open, receptive, and calm. So connect now with the natural rhythm of your breath. It is a bridge from the mind into the body, so follow it there. Begin to ride the wave of your breath. Sense its natural ebb and flow. So in this meditation, we are really only focusing on one breath at a time. That's all you need to do. Simple, easy breath, one at a time. So we'll begin by cultivating a sense of groundedness. You might be scattered or overwhelmed or even overexcited with ideas and new connections. And so a simple practice of focusing on your exhales and making them deep and long can cultivate that sense of centered groundedness. So coming into your breath, take a nice, easy inhale through the nose, followed by a long, deep, fluid exhale through the nose. And in it, you'll notice that your belly contracts to the spine, and you might notice your body sinks down to the ground. I want you to focus on that sinking energy to create the sense of groundedness. Again, inhaling gently through the nose, followed by a deep, long, fluid exhale through the nose, all the way to the base, emptying out the body of oxygen and sinking to the ground. And one more time, a nice, simple, sweet inhale, followed by a deep, long, fluid exhale towards the ground. Feel your body sink, gather your energy here. And now we'll turn to cultivate alert wakefulness. If you feel a little distracted, tired, sluggish, then really simply focusing on first sitting up straighter can help. So look at your posture. Maybe don't lean or slump over. So find the middle way. And then focusing on your inhalations can create energy and vitality in the body. So let's begin. Take a long, slow, deep inhale through the nose all the way. And as you do, you'll notice that your chest, your belly, your rib cage expand out, out, out. All the way to the top of your breath. Fill your body with energy, with nourishment, with oxygen. And then let it go. Relax the breath out. Let's do that again. Deep breath, inhale through the nose. Focused, mindful, deep breath in, followed by a relaxed exhale. Let it go. And do that again, breathing in, fill the body with oxygen. If your mind is wandering, know that that's what minds do. That's their job. So come back to the breath anytime you notice it elsewhere and you are practicing and training your brain in mindfulness. Let that breath go and relax. Now we're going to merge these two different qualities with a deep inhale followed by a deep exhale, creating that sense of focused alertness. Let's go. Breathe in through the nose, deeply, fluidly, fill the body, find yourself getting taller and bigger. And then exhale through the nose, really sink, relax, let go. Let's do it again. Breathing in through the nose, really fill your body with oxygen, vitality, energy, and letting go. Sink deep to the earth, grounding, stability, focus. Take a few more deep breaths in your own pace. This is one of the fastest way, if not the fastest and easiest way, to bring the parasympathetic nervous system online, or the relaxation response, in counter to the stress response in which most of us live much of our work lives. So gather your attention around deep breathing, and you will find that your body and your nervous system aligns and relax. It will follow your breath. We're merging these two qualities here. Sense their effortless entanglement. This is the natural set point of the body. It is relaxed, it is alert, it is rested, it is well. So I hope that you can sense a little bit of space carved around you. You can bring this practice with you, a micro practice, if you will, throughout your days, just noticing any time that you're perhaps untethered or maybe too tethered, you're feeling a little tired, and you can take a deep breath with the intention of balancing out what you need. I really hope that you enjoy the rest of your time with this conference. I would love to connect with you, and I do offer mindfulness-based trainings for companies, insight labs for organizations, and one-on-one sessions, as well as a free meditation circle called Pause. Everything is on my website, mindfulgood.co. Be well.
Hello, everyone out there gathering for this year's B Corps gathering. My name is Anissa Morjgani. I am the current Poet Laureate of Oregon, and it is also my good fortune to get to have a moment or two of your time to share with you some words of mine, albeit virtually. Particularly excited that I get to do such under the theme of transformation, which I think is something that we are always engaging in, and that we always have the opportunity to engage with, no matter where we might be on our own individual paths. So thank you so much for having me. Sometimes I would lay in the garden and I was a carrot. Sometimes I would crawl under the leaves and became a head of lettuce. Sometimes I would bury my soft paws in the softer earth and I was a rabbit. Sometimes in the garden I was a rock. was sometimes becoming 2 rocks, sometimes becoming 3 rocks, sometimes in the garden as a rock I was warmed by the sun or held cool and smooth in a palm. Sometimes in the garden as a rock I waited hundreds of years and it was only the wind that touched me. Sometimes I waited thousands of years and not even the wind could move me. Sometimes in the garden, night would arrive with the moon large and glowing like the skin of an orange-skinned woman in a more orange dress. And that night would use that moon to say to me, look, you are like how I am and see how bright my body sometimes becomes. Sometimes I wait for spring. Always I wait for spring. And for my love to return like it, out of the cold and with flowers on their fingertips. Come from something. Come from somewhere. Whether Gurdon, Arkansas, or Portland, Oregon, whether 2,000 neighbors or 2 million, coast or city, cul-de-sac or apartment building rooftops, parking lot or fir trees quietly singing, whether whole or broken or like most of us, breathing your best somewhere between those two. Come from someplace to come together. Come from something which you already do and then go. Those are the 2 tasks before you. To come from someplace and to go with yourself towards another. Half the task is already done. You can do nothing but succeed in circling the 2 halves of your wholeness together, tiger-toed and rabbit-footed, antelope in your heart, antelope in the grass, sunbeamed even when masked, moonlit, lit in the dark, feasting on blackberries at midnight and grapes in the crusting light of your heart. Fill the jug in your hands with your own ripeness. Fill the jug in your chest to the very brim and carry it across your threshold and over the threshold of others. Carry yourself like you were carrying something precious. Not fragile, but precious of importance, for you are. Carry yourself in the way you may wish to carry others, and carry others in the way that you might wish for others to carry you. Tiger-toed and rabbit-footed. Antelope-hearted, dormouse gentle, ant strong. And if you find your heart made of something soft, cup it gently and gently again push it into a soft ground that it might grow and push upward from out the earth, blooming to bring forth the bloomings of others. And if you find your heart made of something hard, hammer it then into something of a shape to turn the earth, tilling the seeds within it, that they should crack themselves open as all things do under a gift of light and water. Both ways lead to a stewarding in of a springtime. All paths do. With softness, with hard, with sun, with rain. May the day awaken you. May the night do the same. May the smell of citrus at dawn carry itself to you. May any bird you see threading its shadow across the moon thread itself too across your round, bright heart. May the world conspire with that heart to make both better than they were the morning before. May that same heart scheme with the evening to both be gentler. You come from somewhere, and from it you will go to someplace. Oh, the songs you might hear, the songs you will sing, the songs we must share. Thank you very much, y'all. Have a wonderful day.
That was great. A few more people have joined us. So I'll remind you one more time that we do have a raffle available. If Rose will put that back in the chat. If you guys go out and sign up, we're going to be giving away a B Corp gift box. Before we get into our conversation with the folks from Prosper Portland, I'd like to remind you a little bit more about the gift boxes that we're still selling. They're $55. It's a donation, and you'll receive a gift box full of roughly $125 worth of B Corp products. The proceeds from these gift boxes will be divided between local nonprofits, including Equitable Giving Circle and Verde. Here's a little video from our friends at the Equitable Giving Circle.
My name is AJ McCrary, and I am one of the co-founders and the executive director of Equitable Giving Circle. We are a Portland-based nonprofit serving the BIPOC community with real, transformational, impactful care. To date, we have served over 325 families ongoing for the last year and a half with weekly food service, fresh produce that we buy from BIPOC farmers, pantry items, and monthly poaching drops. We've also put over $200,000 into the community in emergency rent and mortgage relief grants, and we've passed out and distributed over 17,000 plants in an act of reclaiming, giving, and receiving. We are so excited about the work that we've done in the last year and a half, and we really want to do more. We are looking for expert sharers to come and join us on this journey. The work that is happening in Portland, Oregon is really important and really special because this is a political hotspot. This is a place where urban development is being studied, and this is a perfect place for real transformational community care to be developed, piloted, and done. We can create lasting change in this place. If we can do this work in Portland, Oregon, this is a template that can be used anywhere. We are looking for people who can really show up and help us continue this work with dollars. To date, we've raised over $2 million, and we are looking to raise another $200+ million. People will be like, how, why, what? Well, this work takes a lot of money to move. But in this, we're creating real impactful change for real community members. To date, we've touched over 25,000 BIPOC community members in the Portland metro area, and we want to do more. We know we can do more, and we can do more with the help of amazing community members who want to share their resources and want to not only create, but see and experience real community care that does not just positively impact the BIPOC community, this positively impacts everybody. We have the opportunity right now as a whole community to come together and to make this change. And we would like to see you right here with us doing the work. You can find more about our work at www.equitablegivingcircle.org. You can hit me up directly at info@equitablegivingcircle.org. Let's talk. Let's do this work. Let's share resources and make real impactful change today, right now, in real time.
I don't know how you're feeling, but I'm certainly feeling this big reminder that we are so much more than business. We are such a big community. If you want to support equitable giving, the Equitable Giving Circle, you can do so by purchasing one of those gift boxes today that Corey was talking about earlier. Now, I'm very happy to introduce two wonderful people, Yvonne Smoker and Andy Reed from Prosper Portland. Prosper Portland is the economic and urban development agency for the city of Portland. Their mission is to create economic growth and opportunity in the city. They're dedicated to making racial equity the foundation of the work that they do. And today they're going to share not only what they're doing, but how they track it and measure it. Yvonne and Andy, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us joining this session, and we're grateful that we're here today. I also want to thank BLD Pacific Northwest team for giving us the opportunity to share our thoughts with you today. My name is Andy Reed. I use he, him pronouns. A bit about myself. I help to design and lead social impact programming and strategies at Prosper Portland for traded sector companies. That is, companies that sell goods and services outside of Portland. Presenting with me today is my colleague Yvonne Smoker, who also leads programming with traded sector firms, but also co-manages our Inclusive Business Resource Network, a citywide program that brings multiple services to more than 1,000 BIPOC entrepreneurs in Portland. And collectively, our teams work with approximately 1,500 businesses across the city with the goal of creating a more equitable economy. So to talk about how to enter and track social equity work. While we want to keep our eyes on the future, entering social equity work requires that we first look into our past. And we encourage you to take a similar approach as you enter and continue your equity journey. A key part of the City of Portland and Prosper Portland's history from the 1950s to the 1980s were the discriminatory practices that destabilized communities of color and people who are not landowners. The consequences of this history included wide disparities in employment, income, and wealth between white communities and communities of color in Multnomah County, and the lack of affordability in close-in neighborhoods, resulting in gentrification, displacement, and concentration of poverty in North and Northeast, and increasingly East Portland. Sadly, this is not unique to Portland, but this is our story and we're working hard to own it. That's the context for our most recent strategic plan, which envisions a Portland that is globally competitive, equitable, and healthy. This plan set an intentional focus on sharing economic gains to address disparities and ensure equitable benefits. And so this is our first takeaway for you in this conversation. We want to encourage you to, number one, acknowledge past mistakes in current dominant culture practices that perpetuate harm. Two, to document them. Three, say publicly, sharing where you are with that. Number four, and ultimately move them towards moving towards your organization's equity goals. Doing this takes bravery, and it is one of the very first steps of entering social equity work. So while Prosper Portland is now moving towards a much more equitable direction, the collective damage by institutions in Portland is irreversible. Bifurcation of wealth along 82nd Avenue in Portland aligns closely with the gentrification that comes from government policies and laws, as well as practices such as redlining from the private sector. Our most diverse communities in Portland live in East Multnomah County. And this is also where we find the lowest levels of wealth and highest levels of poverty. If you were to cut the city in half down 82nd Avenue, West Portland would be one of the wealthiest states in the union if it was its own state. East Portland would be amongst the poorest within the country. So this is the backdrop. And this is why we are working with companies in Portland to do social impact efforts. By entering this work quickly reveals that we're about to grapple with some very complex problems: racism, social and environmental justice. During our investigation in how to best enter this space, we identified three specific complex problems tied to the past and present injustices in our city. Number one, human capital. 47% of our youth in Multnomah County identify as BIPOC. While Portland is often called the whitest city in America, this is doing a disservice to the thousands of youth of color who are entering our workforce. Our community needs to immediately begin opening doors to this change in our demographics. Number two, equitable business growth. The lack of equitable business growth is dynamic. We have wealth disparity between white and Black households at a super alarming rate still to this day. Those are 2016 numbers. I can guarantee they've gotten worse since then. Number three, we've also identified that companies need to start working on culture change, and specifically inclusion. How do you support underrepresented small businesses and a diverse workforce? If we don't take a look at this, take a hard look at our internal workplace culture, we're going to fall flat with trying to do initiatives that bring people into the fold. So we started to look around to see what movements were already being done. We knew that disparity existed everywhere, and this is what we found. Just looking at this slide, there is a lot of noise in the tracking and accountability space. But from the Sustainable Development Goals, the SEC scores, Fair Trade Certified, and of course the B Corp B Lab efforts. During the creation of Portland Means Progress, or PMP as we call it, the initiative that we eventually landed on, we looked across the US and the globe to see what kinds of social impact initiatives might already exist. We met with 100 stakeholders to learn about best practices and existing movements, from Scotland to Toronto to New York, and local efforts here in Portland. We learned that in the social equity space, there was some movement all the way back to even 2017, but larger systems hadn't quite figured out how to address tracking diversity, equity, and inclusion impacts. At the same time, B Corp and other beneficial corporation models and CSR efforts were also beginning to grapple with how to document these efforts. Our research led us to a couple of conclusions. One, large corporations were already moving towards these efforts. SDGs, that started a while ago. Starbucks and others began pushing those efforts forward at larger scales. We also saw very few resources were designed for small businesses. 80% of businesses in the Portland metro area are small businesses. So that's a place where we knew we could spend some energy. And then three, even the most progressive and innovative economic development organizations in the world were just beginning this journey. We know that Portland and Northwest companies have a willingness to tackle environmental commitments. We've seen this. We have that ethos that exists in our community. We are now leaning on the S side of ESG in the broader community. As we begin to build out our initiative in 2017, we decided to enter the DEI space in all of our Portland Means Progress efforts. So this is Portland's response to complex problems, those three that we brought up, taking into account the lack of movement on the S side of ESG in our policies and actions as a city and an agency, those that harmed our people of color for so many years, also taking into account our interest in getting onto the right side of history, and our perceived interest that the marketplace was ready to join DEI efforts. We designed this initiative, Portland Means Progress, with 14 partners to start addressing the S side of ESG. I'll now hand it over to Yvonne to share specifics of our program, Portland Means Progress.
Thanks, Andy. So before we get into one of our newest initiatives, Portland Means Progress, we wanted to give you a sense of how it fits into our equity programming. Prosper Portland, as the economic development agency for the city of Portland, acts as a funder, collaborator, program manager, and convener in numerous economic development. We convene CEOs in the tech sector to address diversity, equity, inclusion practices in tech firms, in Portland tech firms. And we provide inspiring diversity grants to traded sector businesses to start their company's equity journey. What we learned from all these efforts was that the business community was hungry for resources to engage in this equity journey with others. And this is where Portland Means Progress was born. We tackled these three complex problems of human capital, equitable business growth, and culture change inclusion work head on. Portland Means Progress is a citywide initiative to connect businesses to programming that advances racial equity in Portland. Businesses commit to paying at least $15 an hour across the organization and commit to at least one of the following actions: host work experiences for underrepresented youth and young professionals of color, make intentional purchasing decisions by purchasing locally from businesses owned by people of color, and create internal culture change through diversity, equity, inclusion work. Now we'll take a closer look at each of the actions guided by our 2019-2020 impact report, starting with work experience. As we look at our impact report, note that this information is how companies are choosing to enter and track racial equity data. This reporting data gives us a sense of how we are collectively doing amongst 100+ organizations in our region. The metrics we landed on came from a mixture of best practices, equity practitioner consultants, and even B-Lab assessment questions around racial equity outcomes. In asking how well did we do when looking at the data from 2019 and 2020, we asked questions around implementation of best known practices for hosting meaningful work experience opportunities, trying to look at not just the number of internships, but the quality of those internships and whether it was meaningful for both the intern and the business. Most companies had formal onboarding processes, but very few offered mentorship programs for employees of color, particularly the small businesses. In asking about impact, the questions centered around the experience for interns and companies. Largely, the feedback was positive, with challenges noted in terms of remote engagement in 2020. Now we'll take a look at intentional purchasing, our answer to the complex problem of equitable business growth. In total, over 2 years of the initiative, Portland Means Progress businesses spend nearly $100 million at businesses owned by people of color. We found that a few large businesses drove up this cumulative spend, with some small businesses demonstrating a higher proportion of their spend. When looking at how well we did, we also saw increased implementation of equitable purchasing and procurement practices, which correlated to increased percentages of spend at businesses owned by people of color. Businesses that implemented at least 3 intentional spending policies were more likely to spend a higher percentage of total expenditures at businesses owned by people of color. In other words, the more a company engages with changing procurement policies, the higher the spend with BIPOC-owned businesses. And now we'll take a look at culture change, which addresses our third complex problem we are tackling as an initiative. 2020 was an important year for culture change implementation, as the Portland Means Progress team spent 2019 building out the framework for this action. In March 2020, we rolled out the Culture Change Roadmap, which has since been viewed more than 14,000 times by people in 90 different countries. Andy will talk a bit more about how to enter this work later on using the publicly available Culture Change Roadmap. When looking at how well we did, we found that businesses with more than 100 employees were more likely to implement culture change actions, with small businesses struggling with capacity to implement the work. Businesses largely focused on DEI trainings and accountability in their actions. As we look forward to 2022 and beyond, we'll take a look at where we came from. Portland Means Progress opened in March 2019 with 50 early adopter businesses. Currently, Portland Means Progress has 127 businesses representing more than 50,000 employees in the city. We've now completed 2 years of engagements with businesses and we're ready to scale. Since this session is titled How to Enter and Track Social Equity Work, I'll now turn it over to Andy to talk about how businesses can enter this work.
Thank you, Yvonne. So we have 2 invitations for you today. If you find yourself to be located in the greater Portland metro area as shown on this map, we invite you to sign up for Portland Means Progress. We have B Corp businesses already enrolled in programming with us. I see some of you are on the call today. When we designed our activities, gratefully, B Lab was willing to share assessment questions with us around the S side of ESG, as Yvonne was previously describing. And our survey work results align with many of those activities that you'll be pursuing to increase your B Corp commitments. Portland Means Progress should be viewed as a resource and a means to activate your commitments. And if you're looking to increase your score, peer companies inside Portland Means Progress are already taking this approach. For companies enrolled in programming, here's what's on tap. We have partnerships with work experience partners such as the Emerging Leaders Institute through the Contingent. They're an amazing nonprofit that center programming on BIPOC youth. They provide excellent candidates for internships along with training and programming to help you become a more inclusive business. We have technical assistance in tracking and measuring purchasing goods and services. This involves everything from where you find vendors to how you customize spreadsheets that align with your current procurement software. We have connections to Mercatus businesses. These businesses are BIPOC-owned businesses, approximately 900 or more at this point, are in our directory and they're ready to engage you. So if you're looking for a one-stop shop place to go find businesses, Mercatus is the place to go. We have programming to create connections between the business community and racial equity practitioners at scale. In the next year, starting in January, we're going to convene sessions with more than 20 equity practitioners in the city to start helping you find and identify the best practitioner that meets your needs. For those of you who aren't engaged in Portland Means Progress or reside outside our region, you can immediately start accessing our culture change roadmap. This was designed by a cohort of equity practitioners and Prosper Portland staff. As we continue to build our programming out, we'll add more materials to this site. We could go to that slide, Yvonne, then I'll kind of describe this a little bit more. So in this place, you have a number of resources. When we talk about an equity journey, the journey isn't one single entry point, but it is multiple. So if you want to start spending some time on how to get a CEO or executive leadership to show up to the table, we have resources for that. If you're ready to start doing a readiness assessment to see where you want to start your equity journey, there are resources there. If you find yourself to be a champion, one of the only in your organization, we have resources to help you figure out how to bring others into that space with you. Industry standards, metrics, how to celebrate, how to scale, storytelling. These are all things that we provided to you to start thinking about where to go with these activities. So as we conclude this presentation, we want to thank our partners so much for getting into this work with us. All of the culturally specific chambers in the city of Portland, Work Systems Inc., the city, the Portland Business Alliance, BBPDX, a number of organizations helped us raise this up. And we are glad and grateful to have such an awesome collaborative approach to this process. I think that's all we have for today. So if we have any questions, I'm not sure how we're doing for time here, Sarah, but we'd be glad to take any if you do have them.
Yes, we definitely have a little bit more time. I haven't seen any questions in the chat quite yet, but I'm happy to bring some if people have any. So go ahead, folks. We have put some of the links in that were mentioned by Andy and Yvonne. But do you have a question for them? A question about what Prosper Portland is up to right now, some of this wonderful work that they're doing. Share your thoughts. Okay, here we go. A Summer is wondering, can you talk more about your work with small businesses?
How about Yvonne? Do you want to tackle that one?
Sure. So Portland Means Progress has anywhere from solopreneurs to 15,000 employees. And so we have a lot of range and we're industry agnostic. So we take any and all organizations, nonprofits as well, who are interested in doing diversity and equity and inclusion work. So I think the first year of the initiative, we weren't sure if we were going to take solopreneurs or people with employees. And then we realized that we're here for all organizations that want to do this work and provide the resources for them. And so in addition to Portland Means Progress having probably a majority of small business owners actually join the initiative, there's also overlap between Portland Means Progress and Mercatus as far as businesses who are both BIPOC owned. So Mercatus is another program that we have over at Prosper Portland, which is an online directory and storytelling platform for businesses owned by people of color. So it's a directory for our Portland Means Progress businesses to access to work on their intentional purchasing action, as well as BIPOC businesses who want to support other BIPOC businesses who join Portland Means Progress. So we have those programs both together that work in unison and in concert with each other to build this ecosystem of small businesses, large businesses that are trying to change the way they do their purchasing. So an Inclusive Business Resource Network is another program that I also just newly joined the team to co-manage. And that specifically is providing technical assistance to businesses in the city. So Inclusive Business Resource Network, or IBRN, has a network of about 20 nonprofit organizations that we fund to provide this direct technical assistance to business. And most of them are businesses that are 50 employees or less. And so that is the bulk of where we work with small businesses. But again, there's a lot of building in this ecosystem of support. So not only the technical assistance for business who are starting and growing, but also the DEI support for those businesses who want to do this work in their organization. And that's where Portland Means Progress fills that gap.
Do you guys have a vision for what Portland could look like in, I don't know, 10 years from now? What's your dream for this city?
I can share my dream. When we started looking at this work back in 2017, sat down, like I said, with a number of consultants around the United States, economic development organizations, the Brookings Institute, a number of places. And we started looking at the numbers. We have 32,000 businesses inside Portland employ people. So what if all 32,000 did something together around social equity, social change? And that would be amazing if we could find a way to do that. Another way to look at this is we have, so Yvonne shared some numbers, the number is actually higher, $150 million spent by Portland Means Progress businesses within the BIPOC community. If you look at the GDP of Multnomah County alone, that's like 0.1%. So it's a great number, like good job, we did good. And it's 0.1, it's a very, very small amount of what could actually be moved inside the BIPOC community. And so again, I think we have an opportunity to really push doing something collectively and having the B Corp movement fully in alignment, as I'm seeing with this work, is just super exciting. I think we could get there, but it's going to take, I think, a collective lift of us of really aligning how we're talking about it, tracking, putting our energy, who's getting funded, who's getting money, who's getting internships. So all those questions are really kind of at the forefront. So I think we could go big with this programming. We've opened it up to the metro area. So at first it was just Portland specific, but we're glad, and that's just 32,000 in Portland. So how many more businesses are in the Portland metro area that could join this with us?
Well, Andy and Yvonne, I'm really excited about that. And the things that you're talking about are clearly completely aligned with everything that we're talking about in these conference over the last 2 days. So I hope you'll stay engaged, hear a little bit more about what some of these B Corp businesses are up to, and looking forward to some great partnerships coming up. So thank you both very much. Awesome. Now we're going to get on to our next conversation. As many of you know, New Seasons is a big supporter of B-Lab Portland and of this conference. And Chris Tiersland is the Director of Brand Strategy for New Seasons. He's joining us today to talk about one of their latest projects that you'll probably be very interested in, the Partner Fund. Chris, we got you here, right?
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate it. I am here finally.
Wonderful.
I was hoping you could send me this slide because it looks like I just got a promotion to CEO, and I'd have to let Nancy, our new CEO, know that I'm taking over. So just kidding. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. We've got about 10 minutes here, and I'm going to be really a little bit brief and to the point. I'm going to try to give you some highlights of what Sarah referenced, our partner fund, and how the program came to be. And then I'm going to give you my contact information that if you have more questions, you can reach out to me directly or anyone on our team to get more details. I was thinking, just reflecting before I jumped on here, that literally this week, 2 years ago, we started the Partner Fund program. And my goal today is really to spread the word about this program across the B Corp community here in the Pacific Northwest, to get the word out and just help to get the funds that we have in the hands of the folks that can use it most. And I'll dive into that in just a second, but just a quick history on, a little bit about how this came to be. So for those of you that shop at New Seasons, you may be familiar with the term we use called partner brand, which is the name we use for our private label program that we sell across our stores. It's a line of products that we source primarily locally. About 80% of the products come within 500 miles. A lot of them are suppliers right here in the Portland area, Seattle area, that make amazing products in collaboration with us. And when the Partner Brand program started about 9 years ago, there was a vision to create a give back component where we could share in the success of the brand with the producers in the market, and small producers that are up and coming would have access to funds that they could use to grow. And as this evolved, what we found was we really worked with specific groups and tried to ask a lot of questions about who can use this money the most. And so what we found is that there's a lot of producers, primarily that come from underrepresented and underserved markets in our communities, that don't always have access to funds. In some cases, they have put their life savings into the company that they've started, the product that they make. They've tapped into family, they've leveraged their house, and they've reached a point where they really don't have a collateral, or maybe their business isn't large enough to go to a traditional lending institution to get the funding they need. And so what we've done is created the Partner Fund with the idea of getting that money into the hands of those folks that can use it the most. And it's not big amounts of money. The loans range from $5,000 to $25,000. And we really target what we call jumpstart loans. And these are loans for folks that, are at a point in their business where they've been around for a couple of years and they need a little bit of money, a little bit of capital just to get to that next level. And that next level might look like more packaging, being able to buy more ingredients. It could be moving into a new production space. It might be as easy as just buying a simple blender or a mixer in order to expand their production. But that little bit of money makes a huge difference in the next step they take as a producer in the community. It might allow them to expand into more farmers markets. It might allow them to expand into New Seasons or other regional retailers that open up new opportunity for them. The bottom line aim of the program is to really create a more inclusive and equitable regional food economy. And that's exactly what this is intended to do. I'm going to share a couple slides here just for the sake of time. If I can, hold on here just a minute. Sorry. So that I can give you a little bit more insight into exactly how the program is structured. Sorry, going a little slow here. All right, so just a little bit about the loans and the interest rate. So the loans are range from $5,000 to $25,000, and it's a low interest rate of 3% for the life of the loan. We also give producers 2, 3, and 5-year payback terms. And the nice thing about the program is this isn't something that New Seasons profits from. All of the loan payments roll back into the fund. So you can almost think of it as if you're a loan recipient, every payment you make is going back into the fund to literally pay it forward to that next producer that might be looking for a loan. We put in 1% of partner brand sales every year. So we have a base seed fund that we start with, and then the loan payments that come in and continue to grow that. And as this grows several years down the line, it's going to give us even more money to put out into the community. We prioritize BIPOC, women, and LGBTQIA-owned businesses. We ask that businesses be in an operation for a minimum of 2 years, that they can demonstrate overall financial fitness. Really just a solid business plan and a sales growth path forward. The funds can be used for expansion of current production, like equipment or production space, packaging and ingredients to expand, It can also be used for additional staffing or moving into new markets. The application process is really pretty simple. We have an online application. If you go to New Seasons Market webpage, it's down at the bottom. We're working on that. We're going to update it where it's easier to access. But a very simple series of questions that we ask on our application to basically just get a sense of your business and eligibility. We ask for a copy of your business plan and explanation of how the funds will be used. We ask for a letter of reference from 1 or 2 business mentors that you work with that can kind of speak to the current success or growth of your business. And then we ask each one of our folks to sign a code of ethics statement that's really regarding their sustainable management of people, planet, and profits. It's really in line with the B Corp work that we do now anyway. And the next step is that each applicant has a chance to meet with our Partner Fund Advisory Board, and they get a chance to talk about their business. We ask a lot of questions. We want this to be a really more of a conversation about how we can help. And then we work on to the next steps. What we're really looking for is people that have a clear vision of where they need to go or where they want to go and what they need to get there. The other piece of the loan program that we offer is that each recipient is provided a minimum of 5 hours of business support from the Accelerate Fund. And we use their group of mentors to help producers at any point that they may need support in terms of working on a financial statement, creating a business plan, logistics. All of that is on the table in terms of, learning a little bit more and having access to experts in the industry that can really help that person grow. We've had some loan recipients that we funded up to 10 to 15 hours of additional business support so that we can really help them create sustainable growth. The idea behind the program is to just make sure we set them up for success long-term. So maybe at some point as they grow, they can go out and access, larger amounts of money, more traditional funding to really take that bigger step into the market. This has been really brief, but I appreciate your time. I want to leave you my email address. A real easy one to remember is partnerfund@newseasonsmarket.com. If you have any questions, please reach out. Both email addresses come directly to me. Happy to answer any questions and share information so that we can get the money in the hands of the people that can use it most. I really appreciate your time today. Thanks and have a great time.
Chris, thank you so much for joining us. New Seasons is such an important part of this community, and we couldn't be more grateful. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but I just can't get enough of this music. I really can't. So everybody can stretch and move and shake their bodies a little bit, maybe get a cup of coffee or an early cocktail, and let's listen to some more of C Money.
Before we go on, I do have the first gift box winner. It's Julie Hudak, H-U-D-A-K, from Nosa Familia. We'll send you information. Congratulations, Julie.
Thank you, Corey, and thank you again, DJ C Money, the one and only DJ C Money. Next, I'm excited to introduce a conversation between Amanda Powell-Smith and Mina Yu. Mina is no stranger to many people here. She's the founder of Love Bottle and a board member of Be Local PDX. Amanda Powell-Smith, however, might be someone you don't know as well, but I'm pretty sure you're going to leave this conversation inspired by her. She joins us from Great Britain, where she runs one of the best of the world B Corps. It's a communication firm that works with companies to turn their social and environmental ambitions into realities. Among other things today, she's going to talk about their new report, Bold Thinking, Brave Action. The link to that is going to be in the chat now. And here's Mina and Amanda.
It's my pleasure to be sitting with Amanda Powell-Smith from Forrester Communications, joining us all the way from London, England. Thank you so much for joining us, Amanda.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here and really fantastic to connect with other B Corps across the world. So look forward to hearing how the conference is going. Really exciting.
Well, we love having you here, and we love that we're reaching across the sea to engage with other B Corps. It's a global movement, so it's nice having you here. And I really love the theme that we're talking about in today's conversation about bravery in leadership, bravery in our companies, especially in how it relates to sustainability. And I love how you, as a CEO of Forrester Communications, are using bravery in how you lead your company and what your company is doing. So if you could share a little bit more about how bravery is important to us as B Corps.
Yeah, thank you so much. So our purpose as a business is to use the power of communications to protect and improve lives. And as a values-driven business, we believe that we absolutely can't be advising our clients on what to do and persuading them to do tough things, to be honest, unless we're doing them the same ourselves. So it really starts from the inside with us. It starts on taking on those challenges. There's absolutely no excuse about being a small business. We've got to show that we're on the journey as well as anybody else, and that, as a result, means that we're very often facing quite difficult challenges, like we all are. How do we tackle climate change, all the just transition, all these other big areas that we're going around, and what can we do, and how can we lead the change around that? And I think that's where the whole idea of bravery really starts for us as a business.
I can so relate to that. I think as a small business, it's easy to say, well, what can I do? Or there's all these hurdles or complications, or, you know, is it really going to make a big impact? And so it keeps us from making those bold moves and kind of keeping things smaller. How do you guys look at things when you're trying to see how can we bring bravery into this area?
I think in many ways it's about not being afraid to try things and learn as you go. So one good example from a while ago was that we were looking at sustainable transport and how could we encourage our team to come to work by foot or by bike as opposed to other methods of transport. And what we thought the best thing we could do was to try and incentivize that. So we started a scheme where we paid people per mile for every mile they traveled, if it was by foot or by bike. And that kick-started a whole movement in sustainable transport within the business. It's gone really well. Now, to be honest, people do it whether the money isn't really important because they now love doing it. But actually what we did next was think, well, how could we transfer that to our clients? And so just early last year, we looked at a way in which if clients came to our offices for meetings, then we would, and they came by foot or by bike, then we would take absolutely the same payment value off our bills to them. There's again an incentive around that. So it's about thinking creatively around how we can do that and how we can try things in that area.
I love that. That's such a great concept, especially here in Portland. People love to bike around even if it's raining, and so to be incentivized as a company for traveling that way is such a great way. But I love how you took it one step further and not only having it a policy for your own company and team, but for your clients as well. That really expands the impact and reach of what it is that you're trying to do.
Thank you. I think that's really also how we came at the broader issue of climate change. So, like everybody, 2019 was all around sort of really the Extinction Rebellion and the recognition of Greta Thunberg and the climate strikes, etc. And for all of us, we were like, well, what more can we do? We're already, as a small business, pretty well net zero on our Scope 2 emissions. What else can we do? And we realised that actually the area where we had the biggest impact was through our clients and through our suppliers. So that next stage was to look at creating a climate plan, a positive plan for ourselves, which committed not only to our offices, which are small and quite easy to control, but to actually looking at our whole value chain. And we put out targets which were to commit for all our suppliers to be committed to becoming net positive by March 2022. So that's coming up quite fast. And also all our clients by April 2023. So we're really now working across that as a business to encourage, persuade, explain, help, and sort of push that change through everything that we're doing.
Wow, that's really taking the me into the we, like so strongly, because you know you can control yourself as a team and company, but then to bring in your whole supply chain, and then also to embrace and bring in your clients to join in the same kind of forward mission. And then as you go out, your impact goes into the world, the me, we world view of B Corps. I love how this plan really embraces all of that, as all of your clients have further impacts. And then you guys have inspired them for how much more you can do when you bring the next round into the fold there. And so
Thank you.
I really love that. And then, so you guys have done a lot with this bravery in climate change and different ideas and plans that you guys have been doing. So share a little bit about the impact plans and the different plans you guys have created.
So, I mean, I think you know, beyond the climate positive plan and having that, we've been really trying to work with our client sectors and help them to embrace this. And it's very interesting just to hear. You know, I think a lot of the businesses are now setting targets. They've been really driven very fast. COP26 is obviously providing a massive target and motivation moment for people to do that, particularly in the UK because it's hosted in Glasgow. But actually what we've found more interesting is in the charity foundation sector where we also work, is really needing to help join some of that up, particularly after the difficulties organisations have been having around you know, post-pandemic. So that's been it's discussion really, and really trying to sort of contribute in a very positive ways, just showing people how it doesn't have to be it's steps at a time. It doesn't have to be difficult work, but joining up those agendas, I think that's been really interesting. And then the next thing we really realised was that actually for a lot of leaders in organisations, it's quite lonely being the person that's really pushing change. And we suddenly realised really how actually we're relying on everybody to have that sense of bravery and take it forward. So we really thought about how can we help others in their organisations to be brave and to recognise bravery in its multitude of forms. It's not one form, it's not one set, it's not one way. And so we started looking at that as a topic by talking to other sustainability leaders and asking them what they thought bravery meant and what it looked like from them and their organisation. And that was working with another partner, Charities Aid Foundation, another UK not-for-profit organisation. And we came up then with a report which is called Bold Thinking, Brave Action. And it's got lots of elements in it around what bravery means and how that can come together.
I love that report. There's so much great information in there. There's something that everyone can relate to see what kind of leader they are and the ways that they can make a bigger impact. And I think we'll be sharing links that you guys can see further the complete work and report that they put together. And what are some, I love what you said about how step by step. I think there's this pressure which makes us take a step back because we feel like it needs to be this huge, big, bold. To be brave, you have to leap off a cliff or do something kind of drastic or scary or really risky. And so I love this idea that you can be brave while still taking steps. It's still brave to climb a mountain and it's still one step at a time. And I think that's a great kind of way to look at bravery so that we don't immediately write it off the table thinking like, well, I can't do that right now, especially in the middle of this pandemic that we're still navigating through. There's a survival mode that we've all kind of been in that we thought would be done with, and we still find ourselves in it. So I know it's changed. What kind of risks do we feel comfortable? What kind of new ideas do I feel ready to embrace? Even though the pandemic at the same time is making us think differently and go for different ideas and stuff. So I think it's this whole balance and figuring things out of how do I really move to the next step in the best way. So I think this bravery idea and concept is a great one to incorporate.
Thank you.
And
Yes. I mean, would it help if we went into some of the attributes and things that we found in a bit more detail in that report?
I think that'd be great. I think the visual would be super helpful.
Okay, let's see. Let's put that up on the screen, because I think what we've got here is this is the summation of the research that I was talking about, and really looking at the different characteristics that we found when we asked questions about bravery, and we were asking people what challenging the status quo, the piece in the middle, really means. And what we found was that there are essentially all the sustainability leaders identified 5 core attributes that they felt brave leaders shared. And it was conviction, real belief in the topic, passion for that and really wanting to do it, sense of integrity in really following it through and whatever that meant, imagination, because I think we all know we have to think around corners in a lot of different ways, and also humility, because actually so much of this is about learning and responding and knowing that we haven't always got all the answers, but that we're going to keep moving forwards around that. So those 5 were found to be very common attributes to whichever person was tackling the issues. Then we had another layer, this next circle around it, really looked at the different behaviours that people were needing to do. And again, this is sort of translating it down, but there was a sense of really needing to think big. How can you tackle this? How can you really push out and have a big vision? There was then an ability to make things happen. So there was, people, how can we actually turn those ideas into reality? There was another very important one around giving your ideas to others. So sometimes it is about, you need to pass on, you need to cascade, you need to involve others, which then led into a broader idea around creating a movement. And then finally, but really importantly, this sense of taking on personal risk, which is, quite often a big part of being brave, and how far you're prepared to really sort of stand up and put your neck out on something like this. And then the final layer, if you like, the big red bits, were the character types that we identified, and typically each character type displayed 2 core behaviours. So if we start in the bottom left-hand side, the firebrand is very much led by a sense of what's right and what's wrong, and really taking a great effort to stick to their moral compass, definitely thinking big, and also definitely taking on personal risk. So the person that stands up and really, leads from the front in that way. Then you've got the strategist, who it really is very often brilliant at processing a massive information before acting, and through analysis and reflection, you've got identity. They identify and they prioritize really important changes. So again, that comes into thinking big. But they're also able to really then look at how can we translate that into plans and make things happen. So again, critical skills, which then leads you into the wayfinder, who is very often very disciplined, very diligent, often working quite quietly behind the scenes to really make things happen, so that the organisation can then move at speed when the time's right. So again, making things happen, but not afraid to give ideas to others. They might be the one that pass it on, and let other people stand at the front and doing that piece. You've got the collectivist, who is all about power of the people, setting out to achieve outcomes together, really benefiting everyone through collaboration and sharing, movement building. So again, giving ideas to others and creating a movement. And then finally, you've got the campaigner. So really acting like an organization's conscience and being driven by a strong sense of values. Also, again, often taking a personal risk, but very often part of building movements. So this sense of constantly pushing for change. So that all looks very neat, and it all looks like, we might all think, gosh, we've got to fit in one particular box, or we have to act in one particular way. Life is never quite that clear, is it? And actually, I think quite often people in organizations will find they have to be different people or wear different hats at different times in order to get the roles done around that. But what we found by writing it down in this way, it's been people have found it very useful to reflect on the roles that they need to play in order to achieve what they want to achieve for sustainability within their organizations.
Yeah, I think this is that was a really powerful visual, because it allows, I love how you set it up with the center circle that applies to everyone, and then the ideas around it, and then the personality types. I definitely found that I related to a few of those, and I could see how different parts of what we're doing as a company could be the collectivist or the firebrand, and how the different things that are important to us play into each aspect of those. So thank you for sharing that with us. That must have been.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think we can't, you know, sometimes we might all think we have to only be one route, or I'm this and therefore but actually very often we all have to play these different roles. So how you flex around that is, it's hard. Or if we can't, then it's about knowing who is that strategist I need to pull in to help me make it happen. Or, you know, how can I? So I think it's even useful in that way.
So now that you guys have put together all these assets and have put together this plan and are starting to work with your clients, what do you find is your newest challenge in terms of you know, continuing on to be brave and to bring bravery into what your company is doing?
I mean, I think, you know, for all of us, and we've mentioned it already, the last 18 months has really shown that there isn't one linear path or way to do things, and actually that the world is going to throw up a lot of big surprises, and you know, and even organizations throw up small surprises. There's a sense of constantly needing to adapt, and almost not standing still waiting for this perfect sort of situation to be, and then we'll do this and then we'll do that. But how can we keep moving forwards despite all these things, and despite what we are as living in a world of uncertainty? I think so that sense of confidence in, even if we do this and something else, how can we keep pushing, keep moving forwards? We followed up the report I've just shown you this summer by looking at some of the organizational conditions that had changed over the last year. And you know, we've got positives and negatives, like you always have in a lot of these things. So you know, the positives are that everyone, you know, awareness of the need to respond to some of these big challenges is never higher than now, I don't think, and it's hugely important. So people know that big risks happen, so we've got to get on with it. But on the other hand, you know, businesses are quite often resource strained at the moment. There's a big lack of skills and talent in the workforce to make things happen, and I think there's also a big sense of nervousness about whether now is the time to actually start pushing outside and suggesting new ideas while business and things settles down. So that, I think organizations are facing quite a lot of flux in that way. And I think it's all our jobs as B Corps to try and maintain that confidence and encourage next steps, I think.
I couldn't agree more. That is, I think this pandemic has definitely shown us that you have to be adaptive and that you have to persevere as well, while not giving up on your goal or your mission, or revisiting that goal and mission and seeing how you can still navigate your way through uncertainty. And so I really appreciate you bringing in all this great information and your shared experience. I really enjoyed the idea of, if you want your clients to do something, you can't just tell them to do it as an expert, but you really went through first to walk the walk yourself. That you didn't say, how can we bring this to our clients or a community, but you're like, what can we do first as a company, as a team, to make a difference in this way, in a new way, and then you brought it out that way. I think that's such a good way for people to start. And if you wanted to share kind of a takeaway or final thought for, you know, the audience who's here, what is your thoughts on bravery or leadership, or what we can do in this pandemic? What do you think is a good kind of take-home message or something you'd want them to leave with?
Well, I think perhaps the sort of core question would be to ask yourself what the bravest thing you did last year was with your organization, and then how are you going to beat it next year or this year going forwards? Because I do think there's always, we've done something and then it's what's next, and what's next. And so I think that sense of knowing you have achieved things is confidence, but also looking forwards is that, okay, off we go. Let's go and do something else. And that's what I'd say. What have you done? How can you beat it?
That's such a great takeaway. I think for anybody, regardless of their position in a company, whether a company leader or a manager or a team member, because there's always something that we each contribute, and what have we done and how can we beat it is such a good way to kind of reflect and move forward. And so I appreciate it. And I think our community here appreciates it too. And I'm so glad you're able to join us. I hope you get a chance to come visit us in Portland sometime.
I'd love to, yeah.
I know we have similar weather patterns over here versus you. I think we both get some gray skies and some rain, but and I'm so glad that we get to connect and to see how the B Corp movement is not just an isolated thing in the areas that we are, but it's really this global movement, and that how we're all working together from each little corner of the world to collectively make change in a positive way.
Thanks so much. And invitation reversed to anyone. We're always looking to learn from others. So it is very much about sharing and building. And if you're in London, you're all welcome to give us a shout. So look forward to connecting. Thank you.
It was a pleasure, Amanda. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was Amanda Powell-Smith, CEO of Forrester Communications in Great Britain. She was joined by our very own Mina Yu of Love Bottle. Tomorrow, Mina will be part of another conversation, kicking off our day to talk about how to be a leader in anti-racism work. Now it's breakout time again. In a few minutes, we have 2 to choose from, and they'll run from 3:05 to 3:45.
One of the 2 is exploring zero energy buildings. Why will zero energy is imperative, how to get there, and the role of community in achieving a resilient future.
And for CEOs and executive leaders of B Corps, the folks from Kinesis will lead a conversation about how to support your employees while remaining profitable. It's called Walking the Tightrope, People and Profits. Small group sessions will lead to lots of practical takeaways for local leaders.
Check Sked for links to all these sessions, and the links to get there will be in the chat shortly.
Thanks, guys. I want to take a moment too to make sure everyone sees. You can't probably see it with my camera with this on there. Oh, it's not going to work because it's black, but if everyone's gotten their Scout book, the Scout books hopefully were delivered to everyone who registered before September 30th. If you registered after that, you may have gotten it, but if not, you should get it in the next day or 2. It's an amazing resource which has information about today's event inside. So take a look, and hopefully it's something you can keep. While we have time, I think we're just doing a quick time check here. I think we have time for one more raffle. This time we'll put a link in the chat for a chance to win an estate plan from Align Law. Rose will put that over there, and we'll keep that active until we get back from the breakout sessions. I think we're going to try and connect with Karen and Kyra and check in on the live art.
Hey everyone. Wow, I'm loving the conference so far. It's really great. I'm still out here at the Nova building, and we're going to check in with Kyra really quick here. But first, I wanted to just show you around here, this building. The parking lot here is full of street art. So I'm going to flip my camera around so you can see all of the street art around here on the facade. And Kyra's piece is just one of many out here. It's really cool, all around the garage as well. So we're going to go over and check in with Kyra again, see the progress. Hey Kyra.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. How's everybody doing? I mean, I can't hear you, but I assume well.
Yeah, it's looking really good. How do you feel about the progress today?
Good. I think I was kind of concerned maybe I was going too fast and with the drying time, but I mean, hey, I'd rather be early than late. So yeah, I feel real good. Feel good about the progress.
Was looking awesome. We're getting lots of comments in the chat as well from people loving it so far. Yay. So we're gonna turn your video back on so we can keep watching that during the breakouts.
Absolutely.
Welcome back, anyone who's here. We're gonna wait just a couple more minutes to get some more people switching back from the breakout sessions. I just got word one of them is ending right now. So let's give those people a little more time to get over here.
And it's raining, but we're still doing happy hour, right, Corey?
We sure are. We're in the Pacific Northwest, so we should know better and plan with those raincoats.
Awesome.
There's still a couple tickets left. Galita will talk more about that in a minute.
Perfect. And we still have the art going too. Kyra is just rocking it over there. My goodness, I could never accomplish that much in a day.
I will, while we're here, Rose, if you have that link again, we can send the raffle link over one more time for the estate planning. But I want to send a shout out to Holly Klein. If you're on right now, we'll mention it again. But Holly Klein from the Joinery signed up via Sked for the special drawing, and Holly has won the desk from Foley. Congratulations, Holly.
That's amazing. I have a Foley desk and I love it.
Yeah, it sounds like Zach said we're still getting people coming in. So we'll wait a few more minutes.
Awesome.
That in there. That is amazing how much she was able to do in one day.
I know, right?
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Kyra. We can probably turn off her camera and get ready.
All right, so here we go, right? We're back to our scheduled content for the day here in this main webinar room. I hope everyone has enjoyed their breakout sessions. I know we've popped into some of them and they've been really exciting and awesome. But still stick around though, because we have something really important coming up. I'm very excited that Kel Moody, the incoming chair of B Local PDX, will be joining us. They're joining us to share some of their journey about what this movement means to them and how it's impacted their life. So that's coming up in a little bit.
Great. And after that, we'll put some more music on because everybody's giving us amazing feedback for DJC Money. So we'll bring her back one more time. We'll let them entertain you as you consider grabbing some wine for today's virtual wine tasting. It's free and it's happening in a breakout room at 4:15. Alex from Portland Internet Works is going to be there to meet with some wineries and talk to you about that, as well as some networking sessions.
Great, and we'll see the link in Sked. And if you're feeling like an in-person option today and don't mind the rain, we still have some space left at our in-person event from 5:30 to 7 on the rooftop at the EcoTrust building in the Pearl. We'll put the link to tickets in the chat. Again, tickets are $15 a person. We're trying to limit the number of attendees to 50. We want to thank EMA Architecture and Shine Distillery for hosting this very special events, and Hopworks as well, and a number of the local wineries that Corey had previously mentioned who have made donations. We'll be requiring proof of vaccination or negative COVID test within 72 hours of the event. And we have had some questions. Showing us a picture of your COVID card is absolutely fine. We'll also be following Oregon COVID guidelines and mask mandates. So now on to what we promised, Kel Moody, the incoming chair of B Local PDX, and their very inspiring journey. Kel?
Hey, everybody. It's great to be here. So I'm just going to start with a quick introduction. So yeah, my name is Kel Moody. I use they, them pronouns. I identify as trans, non-binary. I'm queer. I'm the parent of a toddler. I'm the partner to my amazing wife. I am white. I'm of mixed European descent. And I live on the traditional territory of the Cowlitz and Chinook indigenous people colonially known as Vancouver, Washington. So across the river from lots of y'all. It's already been such a wonderful day. It's really exciting to have the opportunity to share part of my story with you. This is a vulnerable place for me to go, but I know that you all are here for it and will support me in this. So here goes. So the first time I ever came out as non-binary was actually to the B Corp community. And I don't just mean publicly, I mean that I literally only told my wife. It was at my very first Champions Retreat in 2018 in New Orleans. And it was such a good time for all of you that were there. When I registered, there's a place to put your pronouns in, which back then, even though it was only 3 years ago, it was pretty rare still to see that pop up. And I was at the time currently kind of shifting to using they, them pronouns and hadn't really formally used them yet, as I just mentioned, hadn't really told anybody yet. So I figured, hey, this is a good opportunity to test it out. But little did I know they were actually printing those pronouns on name tags. So I showed up, checked in, and there I was. Whether I was ready or not, it was going to expose me. And at first I was pretty terrified. I kind of felt like I was revealing my deepest, darkest secret to every single person I met. But over the first evening, I kind of started to feel a little bit proud of it and started to feel like I was being seen for who I really was. In our first formal session the next morning, our MC was doing some icebreaker kind of questions and trying to see who we had in the room by asking people to stand up based on various identities they held. Things like, stand up if you're a parent, stand up if you're a part of the LGBTQ plus community. And then she got to gender. Stand up if you identify as male. I started freaking out, internally, of course. I knew that my name tag had revealed that I use gender neutral pronouns, so clearly I couldn't lie. I know nobody probably cared and was keeping track of what my name tag said versus what I was doing standing, but that's kind of just my internal dialogue that was going on. Stand up if you identify as female. I still didn't stand. And at that point, I knew I was either not going to participate or reveal myself to all the people at this conference who I didn't know them. Mind you, I'm the child of a third grade teacher, so not participating didn't really feel like an option. Here it came. Stand up if you identify as non-binary. And to my surprise, my legs extended and I stood. I looked around the room of the somewhere around, 600 or so people, and I noticed one other person standing. I was mortified and wanted to sit down as fast as I could. But at the same time, it kind of felt good. It was the first time that I'd ever fully claimed this identity that felt so right to me. To be honest, I knew this was a safe space. I knew that there were people in that room that would have my back. Also, some who might have had no idea what being non-binary meant, but I trusted that they would probably be willing to learn, or at the very least, respect me for who I am. Later that day, the other single person that I saw standing up with me came and found me, and we shared a moment of solidarity and the awkwardness that we felt at being so exposed. That was the first time I had ever shared that kind of solidarity with someone, and it felt like such a gift. Now, I really don't recommend doing activities like this at conferences because of how exposed it can make people, case in point, but in a weird way, it's actually what gave me the courage to come out to lots of other people, including my family, my friends, and my workplace. Not all of these experiences ended in me feeling empowered, but the courage I had to share myself with people came from my willingness to stand up in front of 600 people who I knew would accept me just the way I was. To me, that is the B Corp community. I joined the Be Local PDX board the next year, and I have gone through my entire transition and continue to do so with this community at my side. I felt respected, safe, and supported through this experience. I feel like I need to acknowledge that this is not how this necessarily would have gone in any old business community or network. People like me are not often put in positions of leadership, but this community feels different. And don't get me wrong, there are lots of opportunities for all of us in this community to grow and to do better. But ultimately, I believe that we see people for who they are, and we love them for who they are. Business as a force for good might be our rallying cry, but at our roots, we're people who care about our environment and our natural world, who care about our communities and the people in them, and who care about what's doing right and what is hard. So especially in this community, representation matters. It matters to have trans leaders, to have Black leaders, to have women leaders. It matters because we need to set an example and create the blueprint for how we move forward in this world. We have to change. I think we all know that. And we are in the privileged position to model what that change looks like. That takes everything from committing to net zero emissions and supporting our employees, to putting people in charge who allow others to see themselves in these spaces. As the incoming chair of Be Local PDX, I hope to be a face that allows other trans people to imagine themselves as leaders. I hope that the fact that I am in this role can empower other people to have the courage to be themselves. And I hope that even just one person can realize that it is possible to be your true self and also do big things, even if you're different, maybe especially so. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I so look forward to being in community with you all, seeing familiar faces once we can safely gather again, and getting to know many more of you for the first time. Here's to a year ahead full of growing, learning, and transforming into better people and businesses. Thank you.
Kel, thank you so much. I don't know if you're watching these messages come in the chat, but I'm sure we'll archive them for you. You are incredible. Thank you for sharing your heart and yourself. I remember that day and that moment of feeling so proud of you, love you always, and really proud you are leading our community. Thank you for sharing your story. You're incredible. You're amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I can't even go back all the way. Your wisdom and leadership is needed by all of us, and your bravery too. You know, that's something we heard about today, was about bravery from Amanda Powell Smith, and this was a brave thing to do, I think. And I just am really proud to call you someone that we're working with. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Cal.
All right, we'd like to say another special thank you to the many sponsors without whom we would not be here today. Next up, we'll hear some more from DJ C Money, and then we're off to our happy hours in the rain. Hope people have umbrellas with them. Check Sked and the chat for details.
Tomorrow morning, we will start off with some more music from DJ C Money, again at 8:45 a.m. And the official program kicks into gear at 9. Thank you for being here with us today, and hope to see you at the happy hour.